I got away for a day and look what happens. It's kind of kicked off in the transfer window for good and bad reasons for Arsenal. We're going to talk about all of that and more. We've got Benjamin Sesko, Youssouf Fofana, Joshua Zirkzee, Obi-Martin news and more in today's Arsenal transfer show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you for joining me yesterday for our second episode of our pre-recorded series talking about dream transfer windows. You've got one more episode to come, which will be either on Friday or Saturday, so make sure you're looking out for that. And thank you again for helping to get the likes up on those videos. It's on just over 900. So may I recommend that we got 24 hours. If you've not yet liked yesterday's video, the dream transfer, and if you go into the videos tab of the channel, you'll find it there. If you've not yet watched it, please make sure you go and catch up. It's certainly worth your listenership. So thank you to those that have tuned in, and do help us to get to 1,000 likes on that video, and help us to get to 1,000 likes on this video, of course, as well. So thank you to those that already have, and good morning to those joining us in the chat box. Pikahu, good morning to you, to Black Shine, Gooner 76, Tabani, Jose, Stephen, Olawale, Damien, Martin, Kaiser, Maximius, Roy, Carl, Darren. We've got Glenn and Paul and Knowledge. We've got Vivian, P Sharp, Barry, Grantley Poos, Juice, James, Amira, Errol, Trader Mike, Angela, Rowan, Graham, Brendan, Sweating Merlot, Trapstar, and to plenty more of you guys and girls as well. Thank you to you all for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed and helping us on our way, of course, to our yearly target of the Emirates Stadium capacity in 2024. We're going to go through, if you're new to the show, what we do is we split the shows up into two parts. We're going to go through all of the latest news in part one, and then go to your questions and your thoughts in part two. There was a lot to happen in the last 48 hours, so it may be that I missed some of the more niche stories, of which, if you're aware of them, you can ask me about them in part two. But I'm going to round up the headlines in and kind of the headline features in this section now. So we start with Chido Obi-Martin, of course, who we left you a couple of days ago with the news reported by Scoop that suggested that he had rejected a offer from Arsenal and that he was in advanced discussions with the likes of Bayern Munich over a potential move. However, the Evening Standard has since reported that Arsenal remain hopeful of keeping Obi-Martin, and that a new one, I expect, has been made to try and keep the youngster at the club for the foreseeable future. There was a lot of panic and a lot of frustration, of course, understandably so, because he's an exciting and impressive player. But the reality is, of course, there's still plenty of time. There's still plenty of moves to be made, and he could yet still stay with the club moving forwards as they look to try and tie him down to a new deal. Of course, players can only sign their professional contracts when they turn 17. So there is still plenty to be discussed and made of this story. However, Arsenal are not resting on their laurels, and they are making sure that they are covered. And so they have made a proposal which is described by Fabrizio Romano as the best proposal yet to be made to Chelsea starlet Ryan McAidoo, or McAidoo. Pronunciations, again, you're going to need to help me in the chat. But I can't say I know too much about the guy. He's an attacking midfielder, only 15 years of age, hence why you're not seeing a picture of him on the screen. But when it comes to a player of that level of talent, it would be seen as a significant coup by the club. And he is considered one of Chelsea's best talents as well. So very interesting stuff, and certainly an exciting link that no Chelsea fans are really being willing to talk too much about. I think that's through frustration that Arsenal may indeed steal one of their best talents at their academy. He's certainly rated as much and already playing in several England youth teams as well, and would certainly join Arsenal as a very exciting prospect indeed. So if it is that Obi-Martin leaves, Arsenal are still aiming to add plenty of talent into their youth ranks this season. Now, we move to the big story of the last 48 hours, which is, of course, that Benjamin Sesko has signed a brand new deal with RB Leipzig until 2029. The player has rejected the idea of leaving the club and instead favoured staying with RB Leipzig for at least the short term, at least next season. His new deal does not include a release clause, but however, there is said to be an understanding that should a acceptable offer be made by a club that Sesko would wish to leave for, that there would be something of a gentleman's agreement to let him leave in the future. But he will be staying with Leipzig over the 24-25 season, with clubs potentially moving for him, therefore, in 2025. Arsenal made a proposal. We know this. Arsenal were interested and that they were hopeful of potentially doing a deal. However, it always, as I've reported for the last few days, it was always much, much further away than any of the noise was suggesting. And that reality seemingly has come to the fore with him signing a new deal. And Arsenal will now turn their attentions to not only other targets, but potentially other areas as well. There is not an expectation that Joshua Zirkzee will be an alternative option. Gunner blog, of course, The Athletic, reporting that it is not expected that Arsenal will push for the Dutch international, who has just been called up by the Dutch national side, of course, for the European Championships this summer. Zirkzee is on the radar of a number of clubs, mainly AC Milan, Manchester United, of course, as well. Also interested in Joshua Zirkzee, but it is not expected that Arsenal will be the side that lands the Dutch international this summer at this moment in time. However, there is still expectations that Eddie Nketiah will be sold. So despite, if any of you that kind of like had growing fears that Eddie Nketiah may now be staying at the club because Arsenal's deal for Sesko, which never really started but never really materialised, fear not at the moment, because the expectation remains that Eddie Nketiah will be sold. Figures are being talked about in the region of 25 to 35 million pounds. We know that Wolves, Crystal Palace are all interested. I think there's another Premier League club as well also interested in Eddie Nketiah, and that there is a growing, Ipswich, I believe is the other, and there is a growing feeling, of course, that one of those clubs will indeed make an offer for Eddie moving forwards, and that he will get that move to play more regular football next season. However, a winger may now be looked at as a bigger priority than a centre forward, or a wide forward being described as. However, the man on the picture here, Nico Williams, is unlikely to be that player. Suggestions are that he is holding out for a move to Barcelona, and that he would be willing to turn down offers from the Premier League and be patient in potentially sorting a deal. However, he has also maintained that his future will not be decided until after the European Championship. So there's no feeling that Nico Williams' deal to anywhere will happen before then, and that we'll wait for Spain's elimination or victory at this summer's tournament in Germany. However, the headline story for us to discuss today, according to Ryan Taylor, he has reported that Arsenal have said to have held preliminary talks with representatives of Youssouf Fofana, the French international and Monaco midfielder who has been on my radar for quite some time, and a player that I am very much a keen fan of to see arrive at Arsenal. If indeed Ryan's information is correct, this comes as a significant boost to my hopes, and I'm sure plenty of others that would like to see Youssouf Fofana arrive at Arsenal. No word on how kind of progressed this is, just that there's kind of, I think, feelers being put out at the moment, and that there's been preliminary discussions that have gone on with Youssouf Fofana's representatives. There will be a lot of clubs very interested in Fofana because, of course, he's going this summer. He's going to be moving this summer, and he will not be garnering a significant transfer fee. There's been suggestions of 20 to 25 million pounds, if not even that, for Fofana. So there'll be plenty of interest in him. I would love to see Arsenal be that club that makes the move and makes the deal for him. However, there is still yet to be any kind of significant developments on the front of progressions in any discussions going on between Arsenal and the player. You can, of course, still get involved with the latest competition, which is a signed and framed Thierry Henry Arsenal shirt, of which there are only 73 tickets left. So don't miss out on your opportunity to win this. UK only, of course. Link down in the description. There's some instant win prizes to be won as well, which you can get all the details of down in that link in today's video description. Best of luck to everybody that gets involved. Not long left on this one. And do let us know if you're successful. Well, let's go to part two and your questions, where you'll, of course, be asking me plenty more, I'm sure, about any other stories that you would like to hear about in part two right after this. Okay, this is part two of the show, where we go into the chat box and tackle as many of your thoughts and questions, queries and theories as we can. And we're going to start, let's scroll up in the chat a little bit more just in case I've looked at anybody else's comments. Ryan says, what's your thoughts on Arsenal going for Mohamed Kudus I would love to see Arsenal go for Mohamed Kudus. However, there has been no suggestion at this moment in time that Arsenal will be moving for Mohamed Kudus. He's a player that Arsenal were very interested in when he was at Ajax, but financially they just simply couldn't compete with West Ham at the time because the restrictions surrounding Arsenal spending during the summer of 2023 sadly didn't allow them to kind of progress any further in that deal. But there have been an opening up of those restrictions for Arsenal this summer. Of course, they have more money to spend, and if they sell more players, they could potentially push ahead. But there's been no suggestion so far that they will be doing that. Amirul Gooner says, Tom, not being an expert, what is the scholarships and does it go towards the transfer pot in any way? In terms of kind of if Obi-Martin was to leave Arsenal and join another club, Arsenal would expect, to my understanding, some level of compensation for that because clubs are rewarded reflective of their investment in those players during their kind of teenage years. So what we often as a club have done in the past, I mean, with Mari Hutchinson, for instance, Arsenal had a sell-on clause included in that, to our understanding, when his move to Chelsea happened, so that was kind of the compensation, I believe, for his move to Chelsea, despite there being no transfer fee. So scholarship deals and professional contracts are slightly different because Obi-Martin is not yet 17. He cannot be given a professional contract. He cannot go on loan until he's been given a professional contract either, but would get a scholarship contract from Arsenal or another club before his 17th birthday. The process is, Tom, with the current team, how far behind Real Madrid do you think we are? Well, of course, in the last couple of summers, Real Madrid doing deals for players like Jude Bellingham and, of course, this summer, Kylian Mbappe, we are still quite significantly away from that. You know, we don't have those, what I would describe as the elite of the elite level players like Bellingham, like Mbappe. And they've got other players in those categories and had those players with Kroos, who is, of course, moving on. Valverde, I look as a fantastic player. Vinny Jr. in that category as well. Rodrigo, you could argue, is up there amongst some of the best wingers in the world. You've got players, of course, like Tchouaméni and Camavinga in that squad. And they're all incredibly young as well, which bodes very well for Real Madrid's future. So Arsenal are a bit off, Real Madrid, and there is a gap between us and them. But the gap between us and, say, Manchester City has closed significantly. Endrick, as Paul points out in the chat box as well, joining this summer as one of the best young talents in the world. So, yeah, there is still a way off that, and Arsenal need to establish themselves as a European elite competitor to be able to compete with Real Madrid better for potential transfer targets. But you're always going to struggle to beat Real Madrid to the biggest and best because of the caliber, because of the history, because of who Real Madrid are. Arsenal are a massive club, but Real Madrid are the biggest club in the world. So there are obviously always going to be barriers, obstacles when it comes to competing with them in the transfer market. Brendan says, TC, will we get a Fofana breakdown or have you done one before? I'm not sure if I've done one before, but of course we'll do an updated version if indeed the links to the player get more significant. You can see how very close I got to nearly doing a Benjamin Sesko breakdown and then, of course, not signing for the club and then signing a new deal. I like to kind of commit the effort and the time and the resources that it takes to put those shows together to players that I know certainly have a really good chance of joining Arsenal. Sesko never really materialised into that, so we didn't do one. And of course, I am on holiday at the moment, so you're not going to be getting one, at least for a little while. And with the European Championships on, I don't expect there to be too much quick business by Arsenal during this window. It only would have been Sesko, but it looks unlikely that Arsenal will be doing much business before the European Championships and before the Copa America. Drew says, I love this secrecy in our transfer business, but I hope it isn't for bringing in someone we'd never use, like a Fabio Vieira. Of course, there's always an element of secrecy about what Arsenal do. They want to keep quiet about their deals as much as feasibly possible. And they've always, done that. They are helped a lot by the stories that come out that bear no credibility whatsoever. And I do recommend that you take stories in the wake of the Benjamin Sesko deal with something of a pinch of salt. I've seen links to Victor Osimhen step up in the last 24 hours. I'm not someone at the moment who's chasing these stories because I am on holiday, but from what I understood before, the Victor Osimhen stories were a little bit wide of the mark a little while ago. So I'm not surprised that they've kind of gained a bit more traction in the last 24 to 48 hours because stories and certain outlets, particularly in Italy, are jumping on that line as maybe an alternative to Sesko. But I've heard nothing to that degree on Osimhen in the last few weeks or so. But if that's changed, I'll hear more, I'm sure, about that next week. Gunners Elite says, Tom, are we still interested in Nico Williams? He's my favourite type of winger, but I haven't heard many links. There's interest, there's scouting that's gone on, but he seems much more keen to be moved into a Barcelona shirt than anything else. Andy says, Jude Bellingham is not elite. Goodness me. I don't know what you've been watching for the last 2 years, Andy, but I can tell you that certainly this season at Real Madrid and last season at Borussia Dortmund, he put himself into the category of elite players. Certainly this season with Real Madrid, picking up a Champions League winners medal as well, and a La Liga winners medal too. There is no doubt in my mind that Jude Bellingham is an elite level player. Chilo says, would it be realistic to try it for Vinny Jr.? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be realistic at all, I'm afraid. Chilo. Ben says, what do you think our chances of getting Musiala are? He's not exactly decided staying at Bayern. I don't think there's a great chance Arsenal have of signing Musiala during this window. I think if there are a club that are, it's more likely to be someone like Manchester City, for instance, potentially Real Madrid, of course, as well. But no, I don't think that Arsenal have a great chance of Musiala at the moment. Who knows what the future holds, but no, I wouldn't say so right now. I'd love him at the club, don't get me wrong. I think he'd be a fantastic addition, but no. Maximir says, Tom, how do you view the news that Ten Hag is staying at Manchester United? As a rival, I'm happy that they're stuck with him. Is this also indicative of the manager market being so poor? Absolutely it is. It's a really good point on the second half of the comment. And it also brings into the light kind of the uneducatedness of Arteta's critics and wanting him to be swapped, because the desperation just to see him leave for anyone, and it would be really anyone, because there is not the options out there in the market right now managerially to replace really any top clubs managers right now, which I was surprised that Chelsea decided to change Mauricio Pochettino. Enzo Maresca is something of a risk, and Manchester United have decided to indeed stick with Ten Hag. What I would say is that I don't necessarily think that this is a commitment to Ten Hag's long-term future. They could still sack him, at the start of the season. They could sack him at any point. Gareth Southgate is said to be their number one favourite of Ineos, who, of course, under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, own Manchester United, or own a significant portion of Manchester United, have bought that considerable stake in the club from the Glazers. But that Southgate remains a very keen figure, but with him at the European Championships, I think they just wanted to make sure they've got some stability going into the window and the start of the season. But they could sack him and, of course, replace him with Southgate as early as, who knows, October, December next season. That could always happen. And Tobecco says, and apologies for the pronunciation, but catching you live only for the second time in 2 years, do you think there is a high possibility that we go through this window with no significant signings at all? Absolutely not. The confidence at Arsenal is very high that the squad will be stronger between now and the end of the window. They are very confident of doing business in the windows, but they are willing to be patient about the business that they do. People should not be panicking about Arsenal's transfer window. People panicked last summer, and they spent more than they ever did before and brought in players that took Arsenal to within 2 points of Manchester City. So you do not need to be panicking at this stage. I feel like every summer at this moment, I stand as a therapist somehow trying to calm people down about Arsenal's business. And year on year on year, they prove me right in terms of the business that they do in the summer transfer windows. Ollie says, hey, Tom, I've always thought we will get another wide player or a striker. Even with the departure of Eddie and Nelson, we will have 6 players for 3 positions and then 1 signing on top of that. And it's a really good point. Having, for the wide positions, we've got Havertz, we've got Trossard, we've got Jesus, we've got Martinelli, we've got Saka. Have I said Trossard? And then you've got a signing potentially coming in as well. There is plenty of options in those areas for Arsenal. We know Fabio Vieira can also play in a wide right position as well. And if he stays, he's still an option for that role too. So we have depth. A striker signing is not imperative. A striker signing would be a bonus for Arsenal, and it would only have provided depth. And that's why the Sesko deal was looked at, because he was a young player with potential that would provide depth and an improvement of the original and the existing options that we've got. But he wouldn't be starting over Kai Havertz, which is perhaps one of the reasons why he's decided to stay with Leipzig for the foreseeable future. It's at least until maybe next summer. But Arsenal will be looking to bring in players to compete with Saka, to compete with Havertz, and that's what they want to do. But whether they do that or not remains to be seen. Amira says, not a transfer related, but did you see that Victoria Pelova has sadly ruptured her ACL, the 6th Arsenal women's player to do so in 2 seasons? It's ridiculous. It is, and there is this focus in the women's game about the volume of ACL injuries that continue to plague the women's game. Arsenal in particular have suffered so many of these issues, and it does raise the question of why. Why is it happening so often? I don't want to get drawn into conspiracy theories about it because I don't think it's worth it. But there is certainly the question to be asked of why. Why is this happening as often as it is? Dan says, Tom, I'm not sure if Fofana is the right fit for our system. He lacks creativity and his passing is not that great. What do you think? I mean, if you need any kind of inspiration to look at how good Fofana is, I was inspired by his Emirates Cup performance when I watched him in the flesh at the Emirates this season. But if you look at his statistics, I mean, let me just give you a brief overview of what Youssouf Fofana is capable of. Let me share my screen with you. And we go into his FB ref profile, that gives you a great indication of what the player is capable of. 79th percentile. This is in the top 5 European leagues and the UCL and the Europa League over the last year, based on 2,697 minutes played. He ranks in the 91st percentile of midfielders for non-penalty XG. He ranks in the 86th percentile for shots. In terms of shot creating actions, 3.34 per 90, 78th percentile for that, also good. But then you look at his passing, progressive passes, 95th percentile, 8.31 progressive passes per 90, very good. Successful take-ons, 89th percentile. And then defensively, he's got some decent interception numbers there with 71st percentile, 1.23. He's over 2 tackles per 90 as well. And this is playing for Monaco, of course, in Liga. And if he was to move to Arsenal, you would hope to expect an improvement from the coaching on the Arsenal side to get those numbers even higher and even more impressive. So I'd look at those numbers and I'd say, well, look at that. I think there's plenty to be excited about. As well. Right, let's go to Vanajit, who says, would you consider trying to bring back Neves from Saudi Arabia and team him up with Neto, as they already know each other so well? He seems very happy in Saudi Arabia at the moment, does Ruben Neves. So I'm not necessarily sure that he would be willing to take that step or that move, and Arsenal would have to offer a considerable wage, of course, with that huge bumper contract he got when he moved to Al Hilal, I think it was, from memory. So Neto, though, his injury record continues to be something of an obstacle for a lot of fans to get on board with, and quite rightly, he has missed a lot of football. He's one of the few players whose injury records genuinely does put me off signing them. Unreal Gooner says Chelsea have 9 forwards, so at least 6 of them will be on the bench. I don't want that. It's wasted money. And not only that, but they look to be bringing in another in Durant. Now, let me ask you this question. If Arsenal were in the situation where they were being linked to Sesko and Osimhen and players like this, you'd already got a player like Jackson. Imagine if Arsenal were going for Durant as their centre forward. Can you imagine the meltdown that could ensue? If I was a Chelsea fan trying to justify that signing, I can't. I think he's talented. I think there's a player there. But if you're Chelsea Football Club and you're looking to try and get back into the Champions League next season, is Durant at 40 to 50 million pounds, 20 years of age, with the number of Premier League appearances being 35, 5 goals scored? I'm just checking the number of minutes he's played. I'm sure it's the majority of them do come as a substitute. I just can't, in my mind, think of, he played 1,000 minutes last season. He scored 8 goals, which coming off the bench, pretty good, but never really been able to establish himself as a starter at Villa. That amount of investment is such, again, I just find Chelsea's recruitment strategy to be so puzzling. Cole Palmer was a great signing, but he stands out really as the only one that has really worked. Caicedo, jury's out. Fernandez, jury's out. Madueke, jury's out. Mudryk, jury's out. Jackson, jury's out. Dizazi, jury's out. Badiashile, the jury is out. Malo Gusto looks a decent signing. I'll give them that. Petrovic, Sanchez, jury's out on these players. So is Duran the answer to their centre-forward options? I don't think so. I could be proven wrong, and I hold my hands up if I am, just like I did with the Cole Palmer signing. But goodness me, if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be concerned right now. I really, really would, about the managerial situation, about the changes that they're making. If they sell Amari Hutchinson, and this is coming from an Arsenal fan, if I was Chelsea, I'd look at what Amari Hutchinson did at Ipswich last season and think, goodness me, why are we investing £30 million and £80 million in wingers? You've got this guy coming through. What are you doing? So for me, I just think that, I just imagine if that was Arsenal. Imagine if that was the other. And I'm talking about if it was Arsenal in that situation as a team that were clawing to get Champions League football. When Arsenal didn't have Champions League football, they went and signed Gabriel Jesus. That's the signing that Arsenal did. And after they signed Gabriel Jesus, what did they do? They qualify for the Champions League. So I do struggle with this. I really, really do struggle with this. Ben says Zirkzee gives me the same vibes as Duran. that it's not necessarily ready to play the main striker at a big club. I have more respect for a deal for Zirkzee because I think he's shown more than Duran has at this moment in time. But I kind of get where you're coming from. Catchy Envy says Cole Palmer was also a gamble that paid off, in my opinion. The fee for a player his age and experience at the time seemed risky. But as I pointed out in that long monologue, how many, Palmer is the only one of such a long list of players. Like, surely if you're Chelsea, surely if you're a fan of Chelsea Football Club, you want them to be going out and adding experience and some guarantees. Like Jesus, whilst his injuries have been a problem for us, we knew what Jesus offered us. He offered us a relative number of goals. He offered us the experience of winning things. He offered us a seamless fit into our 11, creativity, and we got back from what we paid for. I think what we have absolutely been is been worthy of the investment because he's helped us to establish ourselves as title challengers. And next season, when Arsenal look to kind of evolve beyond Jesus, he's going to be a really good option for us in the forward line. He's going to be a great depth option, a great rotational option for us, and a still significant quality and still of a really good age as well, which bodes so well for Arsenal. I wouldn't be selling Gabriel Jesus. I've gone a little bit back and forth on that. I might, in my mind's eye, could you move him on? Maybe, but I would really keep Jesus at the club. I don't think it makes any sense to let him go. Kyle says Duran and Jackson are similar players who are at the same kind of level at the moment. That is not upgrading at all for Chelsea. They've got Christopher and Nkunku, who we've not seen enough of. The jury's out on him, but injuries have mainly put paid to any kind of real progression on that front. Same can be said for Wesley Fofana. Same can be said for Romeo Lavia as well. But there's no guarantees about Chelsea next season. Big says, which non-EU league do you think is the best as a youth development ground? KSE can buy potentially a foreign club and act as a step up for our youths, priming them for either sales or introductions into the first team. It's a really good question because you don't necessarily look outside of Europe at leagues and think they're great for development. You look at the Brazilian league, it's created plenty of top talents. The Argentinian league, perhaps to a lesser degree as well. But it's mainly the Brazilian league. MLS is improving a lot, but we've already got links to Colorado Rapids, and I don't necessarily think that it's of a level that you can really get enough quality. Ultimately, I think it is an EU league that you would need to invest in a multi-club model to improve the options that you've got to sign players like Chelsea have with Strasbourg, for example. Ben says, would you take Ryan Cherky? If we're looking for a deep block specialist, he could be the guy, and no one seems to be talking about. Cherky, of course, has moved about. Am I thinking of the right player? Still 20 years of age. I'm not thinking of him. I'm thinking of the one who's moved from Nice to Rennes. Who's that? Who's the French guy? Is it Guiri? I think it was Guiri, actually, who I'm thinking of. But Cherky, can't say I've seen too much of the guy. He got 3 goals and 9 assists. So 12 goal contributions in 39 games for Lyon last season. 7 goal contributions in 33 Liga games, playing mainly as either a right wing or as an attacking midfielder. He is versatile. Does he add enough to the Arsenal team? I'm not sure. I don't think necessarily there's enough there. But meanwhile, Guiri was a player that, of course, I was keen on previously. His numbers were very impressive. 24 years of age now. Last season, 11 goals, 3 assists. Season before that, when he was playing for Nice, he had a very good return in 22-23. He managed 15 goals and 5 assists in 36 Liga games. He had 17 goals and 8 assists in across all competitions, 25 goal contributions. But Cherky, only 20 years of age, there could still be very much more to come from him. But I've not seen enough to either rule him out or say that he is the guy. But you'd have to let me know. I mean, Rich seems to rate him pretty well in the chat books, but Michael says that he's got something of a bad attitude, which I can't comment on because I don't know. Drew says, I'm happy seeing this Chelsea downfall under Bowley, from competing the likes of Hazard back in the day to signing Duran. This is rather funny. And said, if people can't see that Zirkzee will be as good as Isak in a year or two, or even better, then we haven't learned from how we treated the likes of the Isak links from years ago. It seems like Zirkzee isn't going to be signing for Arsenal either way. It looks like he's going to be going off to AC Milan. That looks the most likely destination at the moment, unless there's any significant wins. So there you go. On Devoli says, meanwhile, Arsenal are promoting the dog toy win, which is available for sale. Embarrassing if you ask me. I love the tears coming from this story. If you haven't already, go out and get your Win soft toy. I think I'm going to go and get one myself. I personally love it. I love drinking the tears of those that are upset and embarrassed by this. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. Go out and get your win soft toy, people. Go out and get it. Go and give it to your kids. It's a brilliant thing you can go and get. This is not an advertisement anyway. I just think we need to support Arsenal in making more tears come from those that are embarrassed or upset by a soft toy. That's the level that some people have fallen to. I love it. Give me more. I want a Mikel Arteta soft toy. Imagine that. Mikel Arteta action figure. Can you imagine the meltdown? Imagine the meltdown from people if we did that. It would be glorious. Bear in mind, of course, if you go onto any other Premier League or top European side, they have teddy bears with their club badges on. It's a very normal thing. So there you go. Marketing at its absolute finest. Applause to Arsenal Football Club for making them cry. I love it. Chino says, aren't Chelsea at risk of breaching PSR? How is it possible that they're signing so many players? Well, of course, if you do a little bit more digging into Chelsea's history of profit and sustainability regulations, and you'll see that they managed to find something of a loophole to avoid those penalties by selling hotels to themselves. That's the short, vague, inaccurate version of the story. Go and have a look at and go a little bit of reading into it. It's very, 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 very interesting how they've done it. And sadly, they're not going to face any kind of backlash for it. 25 quid, though, a bit ouch. Yes, of course. Well, anything from Arsenal's shop is always incredibly expensive. It's the way it goes. Micah says, oh, they would explode with envy. Absolutely. An Arsenal Lego collaboration. Oh, that's brilliant. Mikel Arteta's hair is perfect for a little Lego figure. I think we should definitely have a collaboration with Lego. You can actually buy like the Emirates Stadium. They do. I don't know if it's Lego. I think it's a different company, but you can kind of buy the Emirates Stadium as kind of a constructible mini Lego type thing. Someone will tell me what the company is, but there you go. Ondavoli says, if we won the league or a trophy, fair play. Okay, you can only sell soft toys if you win trophies. Shall we add that to our bingo cards? Soft toys only if you win the league. You're only allowed to sell soft toys if you win the league. That makes it okay. You've got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. If you don't laugh, you will cry. So Nicholas says, how quickly do you expect the market to start moving post-European Championships? Will it be fairly typical pace, or do you expect a whirlwind of activity? I think the market, of course, will pick up after the European Championships. That is certainly our expectation. I think that there is going to be a lot more movement then, with players, of course, focusing on not only the Euros, but, of course, the Copa America, which as well is on in the States this summer too. Daniel says, of all the things to get upset about, just idiotic. Of course, it's funny, isn't it? Like people, I often find that those people that are moaning so vehemently about soft toys, the people that tell you that you shouldn't be offended by things that they say, and yet they're offended by a teddy bear. It is very, very funny. Gunners Elite says, I wish some rich Arsenal player would buy these toys and send them all to season ticket holders that are crying about it. Absolutely. Let's go to One Tom Soup says Chelsea know how to play the system, of course, as well, and that's talking about what we were just discussing with the hotel situation. Darren says Liverpool and Spurs were keen on Cherki, but he's staying at Lyon apparently during this summer. Knowledge says Arsenal's Lego Emirates Stadium I would part with a lot of money for. At least a couple hundred pieces would be nice. Mr. Reese says Chelsea are buying through feeder clubs like Strasbourg. I believe that we have to sell before we can buy, of course. And these are other ways potentially around these PSR restrictions, is by using your multi-club model to look into it. I can see some capital letters. Let's see if I can do this question justice. Antenna says, apparently, we don't need players this transfer window. Mikel, if you don't win the league and use injuries as excuses next season, I'm coming for you. Saka can't be used like a bar of soap. I don't know what that means. But I think Antenna may need to take a bit of a chill pill. Fuad says, random question, but thoughts on the likes of being made private? Thoughts on likes being made private on X? Are they? Are likes being made? Oh, they are. You can't see anymore what people like. people have been exposed so heavily by that. I don't know if you've seen like the amount of things that people have liked. What I would say is that you definitely can accidentally like things, like you're scrolling through on your phone and you've clicked the wrong button. You can easily like something you didn't mean to, whereas like a retweet, you actually have to like click a few buttons before you retweet something. So to a degree, I feel sorry for those that have accidentally liked something and then been quote unquote exposed for doing so. But yeah, liking like themes of what people are liking on social media. It used to be that your likes would even come on other people's feeds saying so-and-so has liked this. What are my thoughts? I mean, the running of Twitter is, which I still call Twitter because I ain't calling it X, is still just mad. You know, one of the recent things, of course, the obscenities that you can see in some of the replies to tweets and stuff and that. I saw a story the other day saying Twitter are allowing this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go through any of my tweets and read the hidden replies and you'll see, you know, stupid amounts of obscenities beneath them. Because if you've got any reasonable size of following on social media and you get these bots, I mean, not even to the tens of thousand plus levels of certain accounts, but even just hundreds or in, you know, maybe thousands to get those types of bot replies. But it's absolutely ridiculous what Twitter has turned into. It's an absolute circus, and was one of the worst things that could have happened when it was brought out. So yes, it's only got worse and 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 worse. Gurab says Arsenal should go for Fofana. Such a strong guy, versatile player, can be a match winner as well. I don't disagree with you. I absolutely would. Love Fofana at Arsenal. Gunners Elite says Arsenal just trying to raise those funds to buy Sesko for a bigger price now as well. As Nicholas says, so a Gunnosaurus soft toy, acceptable, but win the dog, not acceptable. Got it. Do we have a Gunnosaurus soft toy? Have we always had a Gunnosaurus soft toy? If we have always had a Gunnosaurus soft toy, then I imagine that kind of puts pay to... I would buy it now, but because I'm abroad, I can't. So, but for you all, we'll get ourselves a win the dog. So if there's any left, they could sell out. You know, they might sell out. I wouldn't be surprised if they did sell out before the time I get back from holiday. Michael says people get far too hyped on transfer news. All you see on Twitter is different clubs' fans trying to make fun of each other. Yeah, football Twitter is one of the worst places in the world, but I see where you're coming from. Mr. B says, wait until they see the retro range for the soft toy Atom and Humber incoming. Imagine if Alexis was still here and they had Atom and Humber soft toy. I think it's just a great story. I think we'll probably finish today's show on that point. If you're upset by a teddy bear, take a hard, long look at yourself. If you're not, welcome to the real world. Please continue with your normal life. But thank you for your listening. Appreciate your time. As always, do indeed drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Please help us on our way to 1,000 likes as we continue on our way to reaching the Emirates Stadium capacity in terms of subscribers. It's a yearly ambition, and we'll see if we can reach it this year. Have an amazing rest of your day. I'm going wine tasting now in Italy. So I'm going to enjoy my day, and I hope that you enjoy yours. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal. Soft toys, imagine.